Know then that on the right hand of the Indies there is an island very close to the terrestrial paradise, and it was peopled by Amazons. Their island was the strongest in all the world, with its steep cliffs and rocky shores, and on the whole island there was no metal but gold. On account of the great ruggedness of the country, there was an infinite host of wild beasts. Their queen was called Calafia, and their island, California. These lines were written in the year 1510. The writer of a popular Spanish novel described a land he had never seen. No European had set eyes on California, but already it had seized the imagination and would never let go. This dream of a rich and wild land with unlimited opportunity has drawn people for centuries from every corner of the earth. A population as diverse as the land itself.
Yes, on Texas dismount, and he hits the ground kind of hard. He said, well, uh-oh, he may have hit too hard. He's all right, hold your breath.
Nowhere in the world is physical activity celebrated with such glorious diversity. It seems that all the boundaries that separate earth and water and air exist only for the strong of heart to conquer.
God bless you. Let's go.
All the pressure in the world.
Anything seems possible here at the edge of the American frontier. Defeat is not conceded easily, especially during the biggest college football game of the year in Northern California.
Stanford's going to take home the axe.
Here it is. That is Moan. He pitches it out to Rogers. That's going to take care of the clock, so they got to score here. This is Garner. My goodness, Rogers is still alive. Stanford players on the field. Oh, what's going on here? Markers down. This is incredible. Moan is going to score. They signal touchdown.
That is a touchdown. That penalty markers on the Stanford players for going onto the football field.
This is the most incredible finish I have ever seen in a football game. California has won it.
California's neighbors include the states of Oregon, Nevada, and Arizona, the Pacific Ocean, and Mexico. The 350-mile Sierra Nevada mountain range is the state's backbone, just one of California's 8 distinct regions. At the southern end of the California coast lies the city of San Diego, the first permanent settlement established by the Spanish when they occupied California in 1769. It is also the home of Mission San Diego de Alcala, Father Junipero Serra's beachhead for spreading Christianity to the native peoples. The Spanish established 21 missions near the California coast along El Camino Real, the King's Highway. At the Carmel Mission, Father Sarah is buried in the church sanctuary. The northernmost and last mission was founded at Sonoma in 1823, the year Mexico achieved its independence from Spain. California remained a Mexican colony until 1846. The San Diego Mission stood at the heart of a growing community. Today, San Diego, with its fine natural harbor and its splendid climate, is California's third largest metropolis after Los Angeles and the San Francisco Bay Area. Close to the center of the city, Balboa Park is home to the San Diego Zoo. This flagship educational and research center maintains state-of-the-art facilities for more than 800 species of animals and world-class collections of plants. In the late 1980s, the zoo undertook a revolutionary 20-year, $200 million project to rebuild its entire facility into 10 bioclimate zones. The Gorilla Tropic Zone, which opened in 1991, is a 2.5-acre rainforest featuring 4 aviaries of African birds, spacious habitat for 6 gorillas, and the largest collection of African plants outside their native continent. The Tiger River Zone houses rare Sumatran tigers. These beautiful cats are excellent swimmers and fishers. More than just a beautiful exhibit, Tiger River is also part of a strategy to save the Sumatran tigers from extinction. The zoo's Center for Reproduction of Endangered Species is one of its most important research arms and has developed medical and scientific methods to perpetuate the diverse exotic species of the world. Not far up the coast is the vast city of Los Angeles, which has a few exotic species of its own. With a population in excess of 12 million people and filled with famous sights, Greater Los Angeles is practically a country unto itself, stretching from the mountains to the Pacific Ocean. But to much of the world, Los Angeles means one thing above all: Hollywood. Hollywood Boulevard was once the main street of the movie industry. In the heyday of the silver screen, movie palaces like Grauman's Chinese Theater were the stages for dazzling premieres. The Walk of Fame honors about one new celebrity every month, and countless fans compare their hands and feet with the prince of a galaxy of stars. Actually, most of the entertainment industry has moved out of Hollywood proper. Burbank in the San Fernando Valley is the home of several giant film studios, as well as NBC television. Members of the public can drop in on the sets of some of their favorite shows and discover the secrets of how television creates its magic. Next to Hollywood is the equally famous town of Beverly Hills, home to the stars of the silver screen. Maps are sold with directions to the past and present homes of legends like Jimmy Stewart, George Burns, Jack Benny, and Lucille Ball. Also found in Beverly Hills is one of the fashion centers of the world, Rodeo Drive. In these shops and boutiques, trends are set that stretch from Paris to Singapore. Since Fred Heyman opened his Giorgio boutique in the 1960s, Rodeo Drive has striven to redefine the shopping experience, bringing luxuries to anyone with the credit and the desire to indulge. Those on a pilgrimage to the stars will always keep a watch out for famous faces. Many celebrities live in Malibu. The hills here drop steeply into the ocean, yet there is a pristine strip of sand giving Malibu one of the world's great beaches. The geological conditions that make Malibu so physically attractive also make its beach one of the most consistent surfing spots in California. From Malibu, extending to the south, Greater Los Angeles offers more than 70 miles of sandy beaches, stroked by the blue Pacific. The beach is where devotees of the body cult go to display the fruits of their labors. Southern California is where the quest for physical perfection first became a mainstream movement. In Los Angeles, anyone needing to pump iron at 3 a.m. will be able to find a gym open. And if the gym doesn't lead to bodily perfection, there are plenty of plastic surgeons eager to remedy the shortcomings of nature. Those interested in pleasurable exercise can take the South Bay Bike Trail. It stretches for 19 miles along the coast. From Santa Monica, with its pier boasting many shops and street performers, through colorful Venice Beach, which can be a dawn-to-dusk extravaganza of impromptu performance art, past boat-rich Marina del Rey, to the cliffs of Palos Verdes at the trail's southern terminus. South of Palos Verdes is the city of Long Beach, which is the resting place of the great Queen Mary. Beyond Long Beach are Newport and Balboa Island, quiet, lovely places to slow the pace and touch the gentler mysteries of the sea. Not so gentle or relaxing is life on the Los Angeles freeways. This incredible network of concrete and steel began with the Pasadena Freeway, which opened December 30th, 1940. It follows an old bicycle path for 8 miles down the Arroyo Seco. The freeway seemed utterly grand in the 40s, but now it looks charmingly modest. If freeway traffic is the daily frustration of the Los Angeles resident, a deeper worry comes from knowing that Los Angeles is in the middle of earthquake country. Even the seismologists at the California Institute of Technology expect the big one.
We expect to see a great earthquake in Southern California, in other words, a magnitude 8 or so, every century and a half on the average. And the last one was 1857, so we're coming up onto the time period where we might see another one during our lifetime. Los Angeles is not going to fall in the ocean. That's unrealistic. Nor is the ground going to open up and swallow people. That's another common one. I'm not planning to leave. I think everywhere you live there's some problem. In Nebraska it's snowfall and blizzards, and in Florida, it's hurricanes, and in California, it happens to be earthquakes.
In Los Angeles, the boundary between fantasy and reality is always fluid. At Universal Studios, patrons can experience an earthquake registering 8.3 on the Richter scale 200 times each day. A tour of the studios is full of many production surprises. Los Angeles also presents an unparalleled collection of amusement parks. In Orange County is the grandfather of them all, Knott's Berry Farm. Disneyland, the first of the Disney parks, is nearby. At the northern edge of the region is Six Flags Magic Mountain, offering 4 magnificent roller coasters and the opportunity to cool off on a hot summer day. The Central California coast, which begins approximately halfway from Los Angeles to San Francisco, receives much more rainfall than Southern California, and its ocean is cooler. Near the southern end of the Central Coast lies La Cuesta Encantada, the Enchanted Hill. Now called Hearst's Castle at San Simeon, this state park was the dream child of 2 utterly improbable parents. Publishing tycoon William Randolph Hearst was one of the richest and most compulsive of America's art collectors. During the height of his fortune, he had agents all over the world collecting more than 400 different categories of art. Hearst's collaborator at San Simeon was the brilliant and enigmatic San Francisco architect Julia Morgan. She was the first woman ever to receive a certificate in architecture from l'École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. Morgan began working with Hearst in 1919 at the age of 47. Their partnership would continue steadily for 27 years. Hearst gave Morgan a magnificent natural setting and a pastiche of objects created over the course of 25 centuries. Her genius would orchestrate them into a work of astonishing harmony. The assembly hall is adorned with Renaissance tapestries. In the Gothic dining room, Hearst would entertain his Hollywood friends like Clark Gable, Charlie Chaplin, Greta Garbo, Cary Grant, and Mary Pickford. The indoor mosaic pool is called the Roman Bath. Outside is one of Julia Morgan's masterpieces, the marble-lined Neptune Pool. San Simeon is near the southern end of the Big Sur coast. Just north begins the tortured and spectacular twisting of California's Highway 1, a favorite of poets and photographers. One of the world's great drives, the 110 miles of road between San Simeon and Monterey, took 18 years to construct. On this stretch of coast, nature has turned the production of fog into an art form. The Big Sur coast offers an incomparable album of views. Sunny upland meadows, lush valleys, sea lions and whales that thrive in the Pacific. And everywhere, a surf that recalls Robert Frost's poem, Once by the Pacific. The shattered water made a misty din. Great waves looked over others coming in and thought of doing something to the shore that water never did to land before. The nearby Monterey Bay Aquarium offers non-divers an unparalleled window on a world so close and yet so far from our own. Since it opened in 1984, the mountains, canyons, and jungles of this high-tech ocean have been home to more than 300 different species of marine life. The 3-story high kelp plant, whose groves are even more prolific than an Amazonian rainforest, shelters a phenomenal abundance of life. Two hours' drive north of Monterey is the Bay Area, with San Francisco at its center. Just to the south is the peninsula, with the technology capital of the world dubbed Silicon Valley. The East Bay includes Oakland and Berkeley, and north of San Francisco is Marin County. Marin is linked to San Francisco by a work of civil engineering as grand in its way as the pyramids of ancient Egypt, the Golden Gate Bridge. The Golden Gate's twin towers rise nearly 750 feet above the waves and carry the 4,200-foot span. Construction worker Alfred Zampa remembers the challenge of erecting the bridge.
A lot of times we're up high on the tower. Once in a while we have to go up in the tower and do this and that. We were up in the sunshine. We couldn't even see the deck from there so high. But it was nice sometimes, but most of the time it was miserable. But it was honest and the money was there and we were crazy to do it, so we loved it.
bridge was completed in 1937 at a cost of $34 million. Boasting well over 100 miles of protected shoreline, San Francisco Bay is a haven for sailboat and yacht enthusiasts. From the famous hills of the city, white sails can be seen scudding like pin feathers across the dark water. Up and down the steep hills of San Francisco move a colorful means of transportation. Cable cars. Relying on technology developed more than 120 years ago, these handcrafted cars are a thrill for all who climb aboard. Each car is run by a grip man who alternately engages and releases the car's hold on the underground cable, which runs at a constant speed. In San Francisco, fun is more important than fast, even when it comes to a foot race. The annual Bay to Breakers race is 1 part contest and 10 parts performance art. Each of San Francisco's neighborhoods projects its own distinctive flavor. There is Japantown. Chinatown is crammed with connoisseurs' restaurants and exotic shops. Each Chinese New Year features a grand parade which draws tens of thousands of spectators. Next door to Chinatown, North Beach was first an Italian village, later made famous by the beatniks in the 1950s. The Haight-Ashbury was the heart of psychedelic San Francisco in the 1960s and 70s. The Castro is the hub of gay life in San Francisco, if not the nation. The sprawling Mission District, named for Mission Dolores, which the Spanish founded in 1776, is the epicenter for a wide array of Hispanic cultures, from Mexico to Chile. Across the bay, the Oakland Interfaith Gospel Choir is an organization that embraces diversity. In fact, the harmony of the group depends on it. Terrence Kelly, leader of the choir.
We are truly interfaith in that we have a Buddhist standing next to a Jew, standing next to a Christian, standing next to a Rastafarian, standing next to Church of Divine Christ. So there are so many different religions that we truly are able to say that we are interfaith. We've learned to cherish our differences. We agree to disagree. So we take it as a learning tool. And if people all over the world could use that as their motto, it would be wonderful.
Central and Northern California are blessed with some of the world's great winemaking regions. Fine wines have been made in Sonoma and Napa counties since the 1800s, but it was only in the 1960s that premium winemaking really began to boom. The Napa Valley is now the home of 200 wineries, ranging from small operations where the whole family pitches in at harvest time to state-of-the-art corporate facilities. The foundation of a great wine is a great grape, and a grape can achieve its potential only if the soil and climate are just right. Grapes can be harvested by machine, but not all fruit ripens at once. Since machines harvest indiscriminately, the grapes for most fine wines are still picked one cluster at a time. Wine tasting is a favorite California pastime, and there is no place more enjoyable to sample and buy the vintages than at the wineries where they were created by master winemakers. The geological and climatic conditions that make the wine region valleys perfect for fine grapes also create thermal updrafts over the hills. These gliders and hot air balloons exploit nature to provide a silent bird's eye view of the Napa Valley. Stretching north of the wine country is the Redwood Empire. The coastal redwood is highly prized for its beautifully colored lumber. Redwood burls are the raw material for a local craft industry. These glorious trees, the tallest of all living structures, have colonies as far south as Big Sur, but reach their full grandeur in Mendocino, Humboldt, and Del Norte counties. A section of old Highway 101 is called the Avenue of the Giants, as it winds through wondrous groves, aptly called cathedrals. This is the wettest region of the state. Under the canopy of the redwoods, a rainforest of solemn beauty has evolved. Ferns and fungi thrive on the soft and silent forest floor among the giants, those that are standing as well as those that have fallen. Much of the surviving old growth is now protected by a system of state and national parks, but conflict continues over the fate of the unprotected trees. Herds of wild Roosevelt elk are also protected at Prairie Creek Redwood State Park. Often called the monarchs of the forest, these animals are gregarious and peaceful throughout the year, except for the brief mating season. Near the tidewater of the Eel River, Highway 101 emerges from the dense forest into some of the richest pasture land in the United States. In the 1850s, this valley was settled by Danish dairy farmers, followed by immigrants from Italy, Switzerland, Germany, and Portugal. The settlers prospered and built their whimsical capital at Ferndale.
Hear ye, hear ye! Caroling in front of the gingerbread mansion in 5 minutes. Come one, come all.
These elaborate Victorians, built of prime local redwood, were nicknamed Butterfat Palaces after the source of their owners' wealth. By 1960, these painted ladies were faded and decaying. Bulldozers figured prominently in their future. But Viola McBride, the descendant of a Ferndale pioneer, bought many of the condemned buildings and organized a city-wide painting party. Because of the townspeople's efforts, Ferndale is now a state historical landmark. Today, these vibrant painted ladies remain on parade for all to see. North of Ferndale, Highway 101 comes back to the ocean. With its fine natural harbor, Eureka hosts the largest fishing fleet in nearly 1,000 miles of coast north of San Francisco. Depending on the season, there are rockfish or salmon, or for some Californians, the pinnacle of the culinary year, Dungeness crabs. These luscious crustaceans are pulled from their dim homes in December. Some go to Eureka, where a Christmas Eve dinner of crab has become a tradition. Some are shipped to connoisseurs all over the world. And some are cooked right on the beach, where they just may taste the best of all. From Eureka, running 320 miles east to the Nevada border, is State Highway 299, which crosses California's sparsely populated north. This northern region is a marvelous wilderness of deep forests, swift rivers, alpine mountains, volcanoes, and a wide array of nature's beauty. Northern California is filled with untold treasures for the hiker and for sports lovers of every stripe. North of Redding, the magnificent cone of Mount Shasta stands sentinel at the head of the Central Valley. Thousands of years ago, when native peoples first came down from Alaska and entered California, this sleeping volcano is what they saw. Little wonder that it has always been regarded as a sacred mountain. Southeast of Shasta is Lassen Peak, which last erupted in 1915. The entirety of Lassen Volcanic National Park is a living laboratory of geothermal dynamics. Both Lassen Peak and Mount Shasta lie at the southern end of the Cascade Mountains. This geologically young range is still being created by volcanic forces. Geologists cannot say when or where the next big eruptions will occur. Stretching 400 miles from Mount Shasta to south of Bakersfield is the vast Central Valley. This is one of the most prodigious agricultural regions anywhere on Earth, producing fibers, vegetables, grain, fruit, nuts, and meat shipped all over the continent. At the heart of the Central Valley, the Sacramento and San Joaquin rivers join and spread into a delta. Some of the richest farmland found anywhere would be underwater were it not for a vast system of levees. Until the construction of these levees, all travel through the delta was by boat. This is a dreamy landscape where time seems suspended. A way station for migratory birds, the waters are rich in striped bass and other fish. At the head of the delta lies Sacramento, the state capital. During the gold rush, Sacramento was California's center of transportation. The miners passed through Sacramento before swarming into the backcountry along hundreds of miles of foothills. At Sacramento, the famous Pony Express reached its terminus. The mail-carrying enterprise lasted only 19 months, put out of business by the transcontinental telegraph line. More importantly, it was from this city that the vast railroad empire of the Central Pacific was built. In Sacramento's Old Town, the State Railroad Museum features restored cars and locomotives from every period of the state's history. The museum also tells the heroic saga of human tenacity that first linked the West with the rail network of the East. The pioneering dreamer was a young engineer named Theodore Judah, who scouted the Sierra and proved that a railway was possible. He convinced Sacramento merchants Leland Stanford, Collis Huntington, Charles Crocker, and Mark Hopkins, the so-called Big Four, to raise the money to build the railroad. In the 1860s, they organized the largest construction project the United States had ever seen. With an investment of only $7,000 of their own money, the Big Four persuaded Congress and state governments to contribute hundreds of millions of dollars, many of which remained in their own accounts. Stanford was elected governor of California and was able to use his connections to advance his own interests as president of the Central Pacific Railroad. There were plenty of jobs available building the railroad. But too few American citizens were prepared to undertake the dangerous work. So the Big Four went to Asia. The unsung heroes of the Central Pacific were thousands of laborers from China, hundreds of whom were killed on the job, blasting ledges and tunnels through the unforgiving mountains. On May 10, 1869, the East and West Railroads were joined at Promontory, Utah. The portly Stanford gave a windy speech, swung a hammer at the golden spike, and missed. Historian Hubert Howe Bancroft wrote, "The sunburnt immigrant walking with his wife and little ones beside his gaunt oxen in mid-continent. The sea traveler pining on shipboard. The homesick bride whose wedding trip included a passage of the isthmus. The merchant whose stock needed replenishing. The miner returning home. Everyone prayed for a Pacific Railroad." A few blocks away from Old Town, on a slight rise of land, are Sutter's Fort and the California Indian Museum.
There have been calls for more volunteers to go south.
When European John A. Sutter arrived in 1839, there were just 6,000 non-Indians living in the entire territory, now covered by the state of California. This romantic visionary dreamed of an agricultural empire in the Sacramento Valley. He protected his ranch with adobe walls and cannons.
15 of the Rocky Mountain Man rendezvous.
Today, Sutter's Fort sponsors Living History Days, where young people are introduced to the old ways and local history buffs get to reenact life before the arrival of the gold miners.
called Castle, Maine.
By 1848, the fort was surrounded by cultivated fields, and Sutter's settlement covered 33 square miles. He had established California's first shopping center, where settlers could buy everything they needed to start a ranch. Most important of all, work was beginning on a lumber mill 40 miles up the American River. At Sutter's Mill on January 24, 1848, an event occurred that was to sweep aside every plan that had ever been laid in California. James Marshall, superintendent of the construction crew, discovered gold in the mill race. Just a few months later, the gold rush was on. Hell-bent on quick riches, the 49ers came up from Mexico and South America. They crossed the Pacific from Australia, Asia, and Polynesia. Others came on horseback or in covered wagons across the American plains. Some took the perilous sea journey around Cape Horn. In 1849 alone, California's population rose from 20,000 to 100,000 non-native people. California branded its name with gold letters into the imagination of the world. A couple of hundred miles to the southeast, there are remnants of gold rush towns in Death Valley National Monument. At first glance, this seems to be the most forbidding place in America. On the valley floor, temperatures can reach 120 degrees Fahrenheit. In these parts of Death Valley, less than 2 inches of rain fall during a normal year. Death Valley was named by some 49ers who were looking for a shortcut to the gold fields. They suffered horribly until they found a way out. And yet, this is only a hell on earth for creatures that have not prepared. More than 900 species of plants have adapted to the extreme climate, some throwing their roots 60 feet down into the soil. Animals have also developed many strategies for survival. Ground squirrels adjust their metabolism to live for months without food or water. The desert tortoise stores water in its body. Gamble quail can lose half their normal body weight and live. The side-blotched lizard changes the color of its skin to repel the sun's deadly heat. Death Valley shows just how resilient life can be in the Golden State. The distance from Death Valley's Badwater, the lowest point in the United States, to Mount Whitney, the highest point in the lower 48 states, is only 60 miles. Mount Whitney and its siblings tower over the eastern edge of Sequoia National Park. While Death Valley is the driest place in America, nearby Sequoia National Park may receive as many as 250 inches of snow a year. This snowpack will melt in the spring and summer. Much of it will be caught in reservoirs and be distributed to agriculture and the cities of Southern California. Sequoia National Park is named for the spectacular trees Sequoia gigantea. Unlike its cousin, the coast redwood, the giant sequoia evolved a wood that is neither cost-effective to harvest nor very attractive to builders. As a result, some 2/3 of its original virgin stands are still intact, while more than 90% of the coast redwoods have been cut down. Considerably shorter than the coast redwood, these sequoias achieve a much greater diameter. All sequoias are amazingly resistant to insects and disease. Their insulating bark, which can grow 2 feet thick and is nearly incombustible, preserves them from all but the hottest forest fires. Only mankind, wind, or a long-term change in the climate seem able to do them in. At the border of Nevada, on the eastern slope of the Sierra, lies beautiful Lake Tahoe. The idea of a Sierra winter struck terror into the hearts of the early overland settlers. But today, it brings only joy to thousands of skiing enthusiasts. Perhaps the grandest scenery in the entire Sierra lies between Tahoe and Mount Whitney in Yosemite National Park. Scraped out by generations of glaciers during the Ice Ages, the mile-wide, 7-mile-long valley was a holy place for the Ahwahneechee Indians. They tried to keep their paradise a secret from the white man. However, in 1851, 3 years after the start of the gold rush, the U.S. cavalry rode into the valley while subduing the Ahwahneechee. In 1864, Abraham Lincoln signed the Yosemite Grant, which set aside part of Yosemite Valley as California state parkland. This park was the first federally mandated wild preserve in the country. Yosemite became one of naturalist John Muir's passions. By 1890, he had persuaded Congress to enlarge the park and include it in the new national park system. Yosemite is a park for all seasons. In the summer, expert rock climbers can be seen scaling the nearly perpendicular walls of El Capitan. cold of autumn nights inflames the leaves of the oak trees. Herds of deer pass through as they migrate down to winter forage in the Sierra foothills. Winter brings a stark grandeur to the park. In spring, melting snowpacks bring the lusty roar of falling water back to the valley. Yosemite Falls is the highest waterfall in North America and second highest in the world. Yosemite is just one of the treasures in the kaleidoscope of diverse landscapes, peoples, and cultures that make up California.